Yeah, I don't spend any time with people that don't take action. So if I help somebody with something and the two things I'd say about that. Number one, this is advice to everybody out there. If you ask for advice and somebody gives you good advice, then I suggest you take action on it and then also follow up with that person. This is the action step to take. Let them know that you did something with their advice, and that person will be much more likely to give you advice or help you in the future. Treading water is the same as drowning to people like you and me. You better start swimming. Welcome to I'm the One podcast. I'm your host, Robb Green.
Well, we've always said we bet on ourselves, you bet on you, and you will always believe in yourself
100%.
because we all know you can make it happen. I think that people might have a different conception of it by watching Shark Tank. Because when we've watched Shark Tank, before and after being in this entrepreneurial business, we saw the dollar amounts and we look at it a lot differently now, don't we? Now that we see this, we're like, wow, the percentages, the dollars amount that they're asking for. And so we have a completely different view of it post.
Yeah, I think that it's always a challenge. You don't know what you don't know. And, when we first started out, first business, I knew much less than I know now. And so as you learn and as you buy a business or as you sell a business, you learn each step of the way. And it's funny when I ever talk to anybody who's ever sold a business, there's mistakes they made. We've sold a few and I've made mistakes along the way on each one of them, I'm sure. So it's like you get better and better. You need more reps. The unfortunate part is you typically don't get a lot of reps because most people sell one business in their life if they sell any. So they get one shot at it, right? So it's really, really difficult to know what you don't know and what kind of creative structure could you use. That's the other part is that when you do raise money, there's a billion ways to raise money. There's debt, there's equity, there's royalties. There's all sorts of fun, different ways to do it. So I think you really have to think deeply about what you want in the short, the medium, and the long term. The last thing you want to do is raise money from a difficult partner that is going to put you in a position that you don't necessarily want to be in 2, 3, 4 years down the road. I've given some advice to a local individual when he had partnered with somebody, and the terms were very onerous for him, in my opinion. And I said to him, I would never, ever sign this document. Not that he's like, well, we get along great. We have the same vision. I said, I understand that.
I remember now.
But there is going to be a situation most likely in the future where you don't agree on something and you're giving this person way too much power. They had veto power over raising money and selling. And all this veto power that I said, you can't just hope. It's like getting married. We all go in eyes wide open with the positive expectation it's going to go great. But there might be some bumps in the road. There might be some ups and downs, and might get a little rocky once in a while, right?
It is over 50% failure rate, right?
Yeah, but even along the way, even the successes, I would say, are bumpy. And so when you look at that, it's like, how does it go? How do you deal with that? Because it's inevitable. It's not always going to be perfect. And I think business partnerships are the same way. You need to look at it and say, okay, everything's great at the beginning, and it's great when we get along. Look at OpenAI recently. They fired Sam Altman. That's crazy. If Sam Altman can get fired as a co-founder and CEO, then, anybody could get removed from their business. So you just need to think about that ahead of time. Don't just be so desperate to get the money to make it happen that you put yourself in a situation in which you can't survive in the future.
I've heard of people raising money in creative ways too, or unorthodox ways, I should say, like GoFundMe accounts for businesses, which we would never have even thought of doing in the past, right? And we wouldn't do this, but a lot of people do this. What are the other ways? What was that website?
Kickstarter.
Yes, was that the one you used to order products from?
Yeah, I was a backer of many products on Kickstarter. So you can pre-sell products on Kickstarter, Indiegogo. It's a great way to make sales, get the money, and then use the money for production. That's the best way. If you can pre-sell something, that's amazing. But then you don't have to, there's no capital. This is something I was talking to some friends about just the other day about the cash conversion cycle, which is the rate at which your cash is either positive or negative. And what I mean by that, if I have a business in which I receive money up front and then I have to pay for the products later on, I have a positive cash conversion cycle, which really gives me unlimited scale. The opposite of that is I sell, let's say, through retail. and I have to buy a product, I manufacture it, I sell it to the store sells the product consumer, they get paid, and then they pay me 90 days later, right? I have a negative cash conversion cycle because I am laying the money out now and I'm getting it back in the future, right? And that's normal. That's normal. We have to put the capital in and we get it later. I'm trying to flip that script as much as I can because cash flow is what kills almost all small and medium businesses. You can only grow so fast because you still have to have the cash to pay for it. And that cash conversion cycle and what that number is depends on how fast you can grow relative to the cash that you have in your possession.
Yeah, I mean, we did this early on with paying for inventory from China. You know,
A little bit, but I didn't have great terms back then. I mean, I think that's where you get terms. I mean, if you can structure it properly, you put very little money down, you pay for it later on after you sell the product. That's the dream scenario where you're not having to get constrained by the capital. The ideal business when we first doing drop shipping is we would get paid from consumers and we would have a 30-day terms with the drop shipper and we'd pay them later on. So we never had to lay out the cash ahead of time. So it was a low capital intensive business.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
I don't think so. I think that was good.
Here's one about health because
Okay.
you have talked about health on the podcast
Sure.
many times. This one, this listener is asking, there are so many health trends that come and go. How do you pick what you want to invest your time and money into? And does your family participate? So 2 parts to that question.
So number one, I think I'm just likely to try almost everything. There isn't much that I'm not willing to try. I went to Seattle about a month ago and hung out with a few friends, and I think I came back and bought 2 new products like the next day. And one of them has been great. I don't have it on right now. It was Apollo Neuro. My friend Mike told me about it to sleep. So it goes on your wrist or your ankle and creates vibrations based on the app. And it's been wonderful for me. So I've been sleeping much better. Another one was an oxygen trainer that Ashwin recommended that you put in your mouth and it restricts your airflow. So it works your diaphragm and works your lungs. It makes your lungs work harder. It's almost like lifting weights for your diaphragm. So I've been trying that lately. But so I just tend to try stuff. I like to test. I like to experiment. You never know what's going to work. But I don't try. I guess there's some semblance of either referral from somebody I trust or some type of science that backs it for me to want to try something. And then I'll try it and then see if I can measure the results that I get. You know, the cold plunge is the obvious one. I feel amazing after the cold plunge. The sauna is amazing. Those are 2 just obvious, immediate. And sometimes the feedback loop is a lot faster. So it's easier for me to say, oh, I feel better right after I do it. That's the easiest stuff in the world to tell whether it's working or not. Other items, products or activities, they're maybe not quite as obvious. So that's the harder one is where you take, vitamin C. Are you going to know that a vitamin C is working on? It's really, really difficult. And that's where I would rely more on the science.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of gadgets at home,
Lots of
little
gadgets.
ones, big ones.
Yeah.
And I know I was resistant to having the sauna room in the beginning because I'm like, why don't we just go to the gym and use this stuff, right? The plunge and the sauna. But now that we have it, I feel so grateful. Well, it's really nice.
For me, it was an easy decision because that's a great example. A few friends have been pushing me to do the contrast, the sauna and cold plunge. I hate cold water. But I had heard it was great. I'd read some research on it. So I decided to try it. I tried it first. I went to Unify, went there a few times, loved it, and said, okay, if I love this and if I'm going to continue to do it, am I willing to drive 15 minutes each way every time I want to use this and spend 30 minutes and waste that time? Or do I want it at my house? 2 thoughts behind that. 1, it saves me 30 minutes every time I do it. And then number 2, I'm more likely to do it because it's at the house. So for me, that was a no-brainer than to talk you into converting the storage room to a sauna and cold plunge room.
Right. And I mean, the cost long-term is definitely worth it because it's not what you think, right? And even if you don't have the money up front for large health benefiting purchases like this, there's also financing through these companies. We had a bumpy start because of the cold plunge and the sauna, but now that it's running smoothly, I'm like I said, I'm just so grateful to have it.
This is where I saw the vision immediately and said, this is an absolute no-brainer. I mean, we've talked about this many, many times, but we have an unlimited budget for health and education. So for health, I have an unlimited budget all the time. There's no reason why I would put a cap on it, right? I'm going to find a way if it's healthy and it leads to a better quality life, because I feel like the ROI on that, the return on the investment of that time or energy. I mean, that's where I feel like I'm selling cold plunges, but the cold plunge is such
I'll
a
switch
huge,
to something else.
it's such a huge investment. It's such a huge return on a minimal investment of money and time. It's a couple of minutes, and I feel significantly better after I do it. It's almost impossible for me I don't know how someone could be bummed out or depressed when they get out of the cold plunge. Like, it feels amazing.
Yeah,
It sucks getting in and being in it, as you know. But getting out, I feel great.
Yeah, and your family does participate. They don't participate. Well, the little ones don't participate in the sauna yet because they're
but
not
our
at that age.
15-year-old Dylan loves the cold plunge. She said to me the other day, she usually typically does it after she runs or plays soccer or just cross country or whatever. And she said to me, "Thank you. I'm so glad you bought this," because she feels better. She goes in it after she does the exercise, does it for a couple minutes, and feels better. I mean,
Their friends love it when they come over.
friends
It's
come
really
over
exciting.
and use it when they stay over. I mean, it's really fun to see them learn about this and test and figure things out at such an early age. It just becomes part of their lifestyle. So they are indoctrinated a little bit and conditioned to, focusing on health and education also.
The other piece that I just thought of, and I don't know if our producer, Miss Stone, will feel the same way about this, but you and I were talking about how we haven't used antibiotics since pre-COVID, essentially.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know what the scientific reason could be. Maybe COVID made us stronger for having it twice. I don't know, but we also we also have been implementing, since around that time, IV therapy for our whole family.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I can't remember the last time I got really sick, and I can't remember the last time I got an antibiotic. And while in the past it'd be like, oh, I'm getting sick, I'll take an antibiotic to try to like boost my immune system
The
and
steroids
try to kick it out and get done with it, Z-Packs or whatever it was, and just be done with it. I didn't want to be sick. I didn't have the time or the energy to be sick. I needed to get back. And now, anytime I feel a little bit run down, a local service provider comes in to the office or the house. I do an IV, typical vitamin stack, and I feel great. And I typically can fend it off if I do it early enough. Then I never end up getting sick. And so that combined with doing healthy activities, eating healthy, staying in shape, sleeping well. I mean, those are the fundamental pieces that I think. While I love talking about the gadgets and the little things that are on the fringe of health, I think if you eat terrible and you don't exercise and you sleep poorly, nothing else really matters. So I think the sleep is, and that's an area I'm still working on to get better at consistently, as you know, is the sleep portion of it. I feel like the exercise is very good and that the food is pretty good. And then I think the sleep is good, but there's still some easy opportunities for us to get better at that. And all those three are the key. That's the foundation to me. And then on top of that is the supplementation, the gadgets, the cold plunge, all the other stuff that goes on top of that.
No, it's very true. There's a lot more attention now for sleep.
Oh, for sure. It's completely changed. It used to be a badge of honor to only sleep 3 hours a night or 4 hours a night. And now people think you're like ludicrous. It's like smoking. People treat it like, oh, you're a smoker. You only sleep 5 nights a week, 5 hours a night. It's crazy. So I think those are the foundational pieces for me, at least. And then I try new things, and then I find things that I love, and find the new piece of equipment we added to the gym at home is the belt squat.
Oh yeah.
I hadn't done the belt squat really consistently until we were in Hawaii this summer, and the gym that we went to had that belt squat, and I loved it. I'm like, this is a great new exercise for us to add to the home gym, to be a part of our gym, and I absolutely love it. It's amazing. So we'll find opportunities and add to it and stay in touch with people and just continuously try to improve that stuff.
Okay. I'm going to move on to another question.
Okay.
What would you like to be known and remembered for? So essentially, what would you like your legacy to be?
I don't know how much I think about legacy. And so my uncle passed away recently, and I've thought a little bit more about death because of that just in the last week. And I don't reflect on it a whole lot. I think the number one thing I think about is our daughters and how I want to make an impact on their life and give them the opportunity to be amazing human beings and have a wonderful, happy life. That's the number one priority for me. about legacy is how I can leave them. And then beyond that is how many other people can I impact in a positive way? Can I help other people, in a positive way that for their business, for their health, for a relationship in any way possible? How can I value add? And I think that will be a legacy, is that people walk away, hopefully, from experiencing any experience with me that, hey, you know what, this person made my life a better and positive way. That's what I'd like to leave as a legacy. But I don't spend a lot of time on it because once I'm gone, I'm gone.
So it's how you make people feel now.
Well, hopefully over time. I think it's a short term. How do you feel now? Am I adding value to your life? I mean, nothing. It's interesting as I've reflected on this over the last few years. Nothing makes me more proud. I get more proud when somebody else succeeds, I think, than when I succeed nowadays. I see that with the kids, but I see that with friends. We interviewed K2 for his experience of leaving his job of over 20 years to going out and having his own. I just saw him last week having his own PT clinic, and he's crushing it. I mean, he's doing
it's amazing,
so much better in less than 6 months. It's amazing the change that's happened in his life, and I don't take credit for that. I just say that I think I helped push him over the edge a little bit, and so seeing that positive influence that I can help make with people, and just tweaking a little bit, maybe the way they think about it. And he was ready to do it. He just needed a little push and then a little bit of a tweak in the mindset, and that was it. And he was ready to go.
I wonder if our listeners love those stories as much as I do, because I really love hearing all of these success stories. I really do. Like when, I already know about all of them, but I still like listening to them on the podcast. Like when K2 was on the podcast, it was one of my favorites. And I think that in the past, when you were starting to get out there more and help people, the thing was the accountability and the execution, right? If that person wasn't taking action, then you were less likely to help. But it seems like you have so much traction with this now that people are coming to you and taking action.
Yeah, I don't spend any time with people that don't take action. So if I help somebody with something, and the two things I'd say about that. Number one, this is advice to everybody out there. If you ask for advice and somebody gives you good advice, then I suggest you take action on it, and then also follow up with that person. This is the action step to take. Let them know that you did something with their advice, and that person will be much more likely to give you advice or help you in the future. Otherwise, it goes into a black hole. And so then if you call somebody, and I get this frequently at soccer, actually, because there's a lot of young guys that play soccer. And so, hey, what do you think I should do about this? And I'll give them advice. I have no idea whether they did anything with it, whatever happened. Close that loop. So what they should do is say, hey, Rob, thanks for the advice. I did this, this, and this, which led to this. Thank you again for so much for the time. I'd love the opportunity to ask another question later on as I get more involved in this. That's the right way to get advice from people. That's what I try to do with people. I forget sometimes, but in honesty, I want to keep them in the loop. Thank you for this. I took action on it, because then people feel like it was worth their energy and their breath. And I think that is a really good piece of advice for all people. If you ask somebody for help, or if they offer help, just keep them in the loop and give them feedback on it.
Do you think also that over time, because of the amount of information that has become available, or maybe the circle of people that have asked you for help have changed? I really don't know, but it seems like over time, the people that have come to you do take action and have traction. And is it because it's the person or the information available now? Because like, let's say 12 years ago, you were helping people out all the time.
But on a smaller, I think I've changed over 12 years. I think my ability to help was probably less than it is now. I've got a lot more experience. And I think information is available to everybody. I mean, it's in your pocket now. It's in your phone. It's in AI. All the information out there. The key is, what question do you ask to find the information you need? And then secondarily, how do you curate the best and accurate information to utilize? That's where I think true wisdom comes from. Is real advice comes from somebody who's thought deeply about something and can add value that is wisdom, and not just popping off about a headline on Google.
You said asking the right questions, and I love it when you say you're asking the wrong question. So what do you mean with that? Like, what do you mean you're asking the wrong question or ask the right question?
I think oftentimes people are focused too much on the answer and not the question, right? So let me try to think of a quick example here. Okay, so Dylan and I have been running a little bit. She did cross country. Now she's doing soccer. And we were talking about her goals, and she wants to win a cross country race next season. And so I said to her, okay, so how are you thinking about this, and what questions do you have around it? And her first question was, how do I win a race? Okay, well, the answer is you run faster than everybody else. But maybe a better question would be, well, okay, what leads to me running faster than everybody else so that I win the race? Winning the race is the outcome. So what leads to that? And then what leads to that? Better cardiovascular endurance, better strength, maybe better stride, more efficiency. Those are some of the factors that go into running faster. Okay, great. So then the next question could or might be, then what can I do to improve my efficiencies, my cardiovascular base? Where are my deficiencies in any of those metrics that I could possibly refine and improve? She's only 5'2". She's not going to grow. She's not going to She's not going to be 5'10". She's going to be 5'2" with a shorter stride. That's going to be the reality. So that's where she is. So now, what can I do faster? What can I do better? What needs to happen for the result that I want to happen? To me, it just breaks down back to first principles, and that's what I mean by better questions. A lot of times is getting to the root of the problem and asking questions around the root. I think most of the time we just have a tendency to go fast and want to go to the effect. Like, what's the cause, not what's the effect. We go too often to what the effect is. I want to win a race. Great. So you want to run faster. I get it. But let's break it down and ask better questions, I'd say, not wrong or right questions.
Yeah. Well, these were all great questions by your subscribers and listeners. So thank you all for writing in. If you have any more questions, we're definitely open to doing this again. Maybe a different moderator, maybe me. We don't know. We'll see how this goes.
We don't know. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. This is stuff we talk about all the time, so I love it. It was very easy. And thanks for coming on the pod.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with friends. Visit I'mTheOne.com and ask me anything. And as always, stay curious and never stop becoming the one.